what I wanted to talk to you about was artists and intellectual property rights. So I am on this panel with the South Dakota State, the Arts Council,
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm being asked to do is to look at how they should be formulating their strategic plan for the next 5 years or so. And so I'm looking for not only voices that haven't been heard, but ideas that have not been put forth uh, to the Arts Council. At least I have not seen evidence of it, and I've been messing around with them for, gosh, almost 20 years or so.
Mm.
But I have not seen any efforts to make property or intellectual property rights more understandable to artists. And so it's a kind of thing that's kind of sticks out there right along with poor marketing of their products. And that kind of comes underneath that same bailiwick of intellectual property rights.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times people think of their art as like the thing that they made, and that's for them, that's the end of it. And they don't know all these other opportunities out there, everything from printing on cloth to design for rugs,
Mm-hmm.
that they could capitalize on if they knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to talk about one in
Even virtual
general.
backgrounds.
I'm sorry?
The virtual background that you have right now.
Yeah, exactly. So those kinds of things, all of those opportunities that are out there, and the relationship between property rights, intellectual property rights, and those things, because I think it starts there, but they're very interconnected in my world. Uh, if you know that it's worth something and more than one thing, because artists tend to think that the value is on that one painting, for example, that they do, but they don't see how that painting could be used in other ways, or worse, they think it cheapens their art if they sell it. you know,
Totally.
you know,
I love this. I think this is you put your finger on something that's super valuable.
Mm,
And it's very near and dear and totally in sync with where I am right now. I think I don't know if I mentioned to you before that I'm rebranding
mm,
my law firm
mm.
into Infinity
Oh, really?
Law.
Okay.
And it's really about helping people understand that whatever they're producing in the world is an extension of who they are
Mm,
and what they bring unique
mm,
to the world.
mm.
And that property rights, I actually looked up property, the word property last week. I looked it up
uh,
because as a lawyer, we think of it so oftentimes about these boundary lines, right? Which it
mm,
is,
mm,
but also the other meaning of property is like a quality or an attribute of a thing,
mm.
right? Which
That's a
starts
whole other perspective, but very connected.
yes, it starts to get down into the essence of to where our
Mm,
DNA is, right? And
mm,
they say that every artist, that everything they do is a self-portrait, right?
for sure.
So it's about teasing out and understanding what that is unique. And it's about valuing it too, right? Because when you actually start to go through the extra steps of building agreements around it, right? That
Mm,
which is itself a form of manifestation, a form of celebration, a
mm,
form of elevating the value of it,
mm,
then things take on a whole different level.
mm.
So I think that you right right where artists need to be in understanding the value of their work. And I have to say, probably right before COVID, one of my tango friends had her sister call me.
Mm,
Her sister is I guess is a well-known, a fairly successful, at least financially, artist.
Mm.
And she called me because she had entered into some agreement, had been in an agreement with some studio in New York that had been selling her work.
Mm.
And these paintings for 10, 12, 15, $20,000 a pop.
Mm.
And she has a very unique style. And she was in some kind of exclusive agreement with him, and she found out that he was buying her paintings, that he would buy the paintings back that he had sold to a particular one of his customers and
Mm.
then resell it for more.
Oh, wow.
And
So he would
so
buy it and he'd sell it, give her a commission on that, buy it back from that person, then sell it for more money, but she wouldn't get any commission because he
right,
owned the painting now.
she
Oh man.
wasn't happy
That's
about that.
well, that's a setup if I ever heard one. You
Right,
know.
and but because he owned the market, right? He had the customer list. She
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
have access to that.
Right, right,
So
right.
he owned the market. He owned the market for her work.
Right, basically.
And she could have negotiated for that up front, right?
Mm.
He might have not gone for it, right? But
Yeah,
right, she would have she could have asked, but she didn't.
right,
And
right. Well,
anyway,
she
her
probably
agreement,
didn't know to ask.
right, right. You don't unless you have familiar. I didn't know about this thing going on, and I'm like, oh, it makes sense. I totally see it. She came to me. She came to me because she wanted to register the copyrights for her work.
Oh,
She
okay.
thought that was going to be like help her with her problem, but the problem was it was the contract that she had set up,
Yeah, right, right,
that
right,
she had negotiated for those rights.
right, right.
And so it was a very powerful lesson for me in terms of, right, and even looking at her work to say, well, what could you do? And I
Mm.
brainstormed a bunch of different things that she could have done, and she could have started trademarking her work, right,
Mm.
and even made it difficult for him to sort of re-advertise the
Mm.
sale of work. And
Right.
what usually would happen is he has had people would come in and say, well, I really love this painting, and then he would realize, okay, I can sell it to you more than right. And so he had a beautiful business going on, and
Sure.
I bet this is replicated all across
All
the.
across. It's probably one of the untalked about scams in the
Mhm.
art world.
And
But
yeah, I think it's a little harsh to call it a scam, but people just don't understand what they're giving away, right?
yeah, right, right. But I mean, I
Yeah,
say scam almost in air quotes and almost as
yeah.
a tongue in cheek because it's like, to me, the scam is like, well, you might have even agreed to it, but it's not exactly balanced. That the deal is not balanced for you. But
Hmm.
before we go any further, speaking of scams, uh, I want to record this so that I think this is going to be a very. I am recording it, I should say, and I think it's going to, with your permission, I'd like to share it with other people, even outside of this effort about the Arts Council,
Hmm.
because I think that what we're going to talk about today is going to be valuable for artists in general. If you're okay
Yeah.
with that.
So I'll let you do that if you give me a copy, and I can do the same.
Absolutely, absolutely. The more, the merrier. Absolutely. Yeah. Good. Good. Okay. So we got this uh, proposition here where we can look at things that could be done relative to property rights for artists, and that artists in all caps. You know.
Hmm.
So first, let's start talking about what do property or intellectual property attorneys do, and how do you fit into that? You were talking about rebranding yourself. How do
Hmm.
you fit into that? What do you do, and,
So
and, and what do they do in general?
right. So intellectual property in general covers four big concepts: patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets.
Mm.
And what IP attorneys, intellectual property attorneys, do is help clients navigate that world in terms of not only protecting the rights that they create and generate, but also to interface appropriately with the IP rights of other people that are out in the world. Um, and the way that typically happens is most of the times it's generated with a client coming to me. Oh, I created something new. I want to make sure that someone doesn't steal it, right? And so I can monetize this thing.
Mm.
And then the lawyer looks at it and then figures out, well, we can do X, Y, and Z with it in terms of pulling the levers.
Mm.
And that's good.
Mm.
Oftentimes it doesn't go far enough in terms of helping the clients understand all the places they could use this, right? Really educating them.
Mm.
One of the first things I tell my clients, really anyone I talk to today, any prospects, is like, look, my first job is to make you know that I'm only as smart as you are in using me.
Mm. Mm.
If you aren't smart enough to pick up the phone or shoot me an email to ask the question, then it doesn't matter if I'm Einstein over here. You're getting zero,
You're right.
right? Getting zero. So the first thing I got to do is let clients understand that you got to ask me questions. You have to engage with me. And that's one reason I don't use the hourly billing model,
Mm.
because that discourages people from making the phone call, because they have to weigh like, on the one hand, it's going to cost, a lot of attorneys here in the Minneapolis area, if you're experienced, probably upwards of $200 an hour,
Mm.
right? You might get an initial consult for free, but
Mm.
beyond that, you're probably paying on an hourly basis.
Mm.
And so you got clients that are looking. I actually introduced one of my clients to a litigator, and he was $9.50 an hour, and it was
And he
prompted
works
me.
slow.
After that conversation, I actually tuned in by Zoom with her, and I'm going like, I ain't charging enough. Because I've been doing this. He might have had 5 years more. I've been doing it for 25 years. He might have had 30 years under his belt, right? I'm going like, I'm not charging enough. But anyway, so that discourages people from having that conversation to actually learn what they need to learn.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So they can actually get the full value. So a lot of times it's unidirectional. It's the client coming in saying, hey, I got this problem, and I need your help with it. And
Mm.
really, that's only one half of it. Probably not even. I'd say that's probably only 1/3 of it. They're probably leaving 2/3 of the value that could be created in that relationship. It was more dynamic,
Mm.
on the table.
Mm.
So for me, what I do to sort of offset that is that anytime I do a project with a client, I build in some ongoing access to me.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
So I don't bill by the hour. I do a project fee billing. I build in some, and so I think clients can actually start asking for this
Mm. Okay.
if they knew to ask for it.
Mm.
But
Mm.
I off there. But I have the alarm went off here about our meeting. I think I had the wrong time in my calendar.
Yeah.
Um, so it's important to have that open dialogue, and people. I mean, I'm in the business of asking questions.
Mm.
This is what I do because I'm basically a professional student. I come into every situation,
Mm.
and something new the inventor has created, and I need to ask to find out what it is. So I ask tons of questions, and
Mm.
I'm in the habit of it, and it's become part of who I am in a
Mm.
bigger and bigger way.
Mm.
So clients need to understand they need to do that too, or they're not going to get the value they need
Mm.
out of the relationship. And it's true with any advisor they have.
Mm. Mm.
So that's the big thing is to look for someone, is to realize that they need to learn more about what they're doing and take it seriously, because it is their livelihood.
Mm.
It's what they're creating.
Mm.
And anytime they create something, have an idea that there's property
Mm.
potentially in it that they can extract and mine it, and to treat themselves as a valuable creator in the world. I mean, that's deeply spiritual too, in terms of your worthiness
Mm.
and how do you see your uniqueness in the world.
Mm. 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 Interesting. Um, I want to turn to just how an IP attorney, intellectual property attorney, might be valuable to artists. Can you give me some examples of what kind of things you you could do for artists?
Yeah. So I'll just tell you one story. I've been to art festivals over the years,
Mm.
and I was at one a couple of years ago, and it was right here in Minneapolis. And the guy had made these. He had these. He was a sculptor, and he had made these copper wire spheres.
Mm.
I mean, they're about the size, a little bit smaller than a basketball. The thing was perfectly, it was just a wound thing, right? Like a
Mm.
ball of twine, but it was copper wire and it was gleaming, right?
Mm.
And it's like, I was looking at it, it was like, it's quite mysterious how he actually made the thing. And so I asked him, like, how'd you make this? And he wasn't going to tell me, man,
Mm. Mm.
because I think he was selling the thing for like $400 or $500.
Yeah. I
And
could tell you, but then I have to kill you.
yeah, he wasn't gonna. And I said, "Well, what do you do? Like, you have a sphere of ice, and you wrap the wire around it, and then the ice melted away, right?" I was just
Yeah.
brainstorming with him, but that was a trade secret.
Mm.
He
Mm.
wasn't gonna tell me.
Mm.
So artists can protect their trade secrets, right? They could have a secret formula for a paint color,
Mm.
or a secret technique for
Mm.
getting a particular effect, right?
Mm.
Mixing mixed medias and some things, right? That whole process can be a trade secret, and they can put agreements in place to protect that, even with the people they sell their thing to. Look, you agree that when you buy this, you're not going to reverse engineer it.
No, yeah, sure.
And so those rights can be protected by agreements, making sure that everyone that comes in their studio, they don't let them see that part of the thing, or they sign an agreement that says that they're treating it as confidential information. So that's one thing. The trademark, they can have a trademark. They can call their art, give it a certain term,
Mm.
uh, whatever, right? It could be. I have these salt shakers that are the Art Deco, right? If
Mhm.
someone could have trademarked Art Deco, and maybe did at some point, I don't know.
Yeah, right, sure.
Um, so if there's a particular style, they can put a name to it and have people actually and start to use that name regularly, so that it takes on a certain currency
Mm.
with respect to their art. Um, they could also get patents on the particular art items.
Mm.
It
Mm.
could be a design patent. It could be a utility patent. Design patent covers the ornamental things. It could be like a sculptural work. Maybe they have art that has a utilitarian aspect to it. Maybe it's forks or spoons or knives or kettles and such that have, like pottery, right? Could be subject to a design patent.
Mm. Mm.
Um, or it could be maybe they have a particular firing technique if they're a ceramicist.
Mm.
That could be subject to a utility patent,
Mm.
right? They have a particular process they take it through where they fire it 3 different times at 3 different temperatures with injecting certain gases into the kiln.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
those kinds of things can be they could be owned exclusively by them through patents.
Mhm.
Copyrights, probably the most common way. Copyrights are created instantaneously as soon as you create something in a tangible medium, as soon as you fix it, right? As
Mm.
soon as you sketch it. If I do it, I'm going to do a smiley face on my paper right now, and I have copyrights in it now.
Mhm.
But if you want to sue someone and enforce those copyrights, you need to actually go through the registration process,
Mm. Mm.
this is probably the easiest. Copyrights are the easiest form to actually probably to say perfect.
Yeah.
There also can be one of the most gray, messy areas now. I
Mm.
have a client with a big mess that cropped up because they didn't iron this stuff out in the beginning.
Mhm.
Started a relationship with someone. They were going to collaborate on creating I'll just say a book to because
Yeah.
it's probably the safest way to describe it. They were going to create a book together,
Mm.
and the guy was an expert in his field. She
Mm.
was really the writer,
Mm.
but she had a particular structure that she was bringing to that,
Mhm.
and they were supposed to partner to bring it together. And he didn't follow through with his end, and she just like realized she was doing all this work and he wasn't holding up his end of the bargain, but
Mm.
they didn't work any of this out, right? So now it's this whole issue: is he a co-author or not? Does he have ownership interest in the work, even though he didn't write anything down? It's all gooey
Yeah,
and
right.
messy, and she's stuck because she wants to move forward with this thing that she's created because it has enormous commercial potential,
Mhm.
but now there's this big gray area, right? That when you don't know the rules,
Yeah,
this is what it's an important general point. When you're playing a game
yeah,
and
yeah,
you don't know the rules, it's like if you're going on a date with a woman and you know that you want to kiss her, but you don't know that you can kiss her, right?
yeah, right, right.
Right? You're like, there's a lot of, and that can be very interesting and fun, that dynamic, right? But at some point, you want to, and then you're gonna probably try it,
Yeah, yeah.
and depending on how it goes,
It could be
you
messed
know,
up.
it can, right? But you're not really quite relaxed yet. As soon as you get the kiss has happened, and you know that you relax and you can
Mhm.
have way more fun, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because you realize that you understand that you're playing the same game.
That's
You
right.
understand where the boundary lines are.
That's right.
And anytime you're relating with people and you don't know these boundary lines,
Right,
you can't play wide open. You
right.
can't play at full speed. You
No,
hedge your bets. You hold back your best ideas.
yeah,
You like, this like, if you have an attitude like, oh, they're not going to do anything with this. You don't get the best out of people.
that's right. Yeah.
When you know the rules, then
Hmm.
everyone can play at full speed, and that's clear. So that's what happens when you set up these agreements between people. You set the table for it. Um, so that's why it's super important.
Right.
So
And you have to be able to stick to the rule that you agreed to. And one, you have to understand it, but you have to be making the rules in good faith. That, and then when you agree to them, you're agreeing to hold your end of the bargain as much as the other person. You expect the other person to hold their end.
right, so it's a creative process in bringing forth the agreement, and people should understand that that's a valuable part of what they're doing. And it's also, though, it's and I don't think lawyers really appreciate this. Like, it's part of the manifestation process.
Mm,
Bringing something into fruition is coming into an alignment with someone, and
mm,
you're putting it on paper, and you're manifesting
mm,
the gears and the level of engagement for
mm,
the relationship. You're putting that, you're celebrating it, you're
mm,
projecting into the future what you're going to create. So
mm,
it's a very powerful process. And in our culture, it's just not very much celebrated, right?
mm.
It's seen as like, man, lawyers just screw it all up, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
No.
they're making you think about things and to manifest into the future. I think if more lawyers actually saw themselves, I mean, some lawyers do see themselves as deal makers, right?
Mhm,
Which
mhm.
is a kind of a wizardry, if you will,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of
It's an art form
manifesting.
by itself. Yeah,
Right. How do
yeah.
you make these pieces put together? How do you deal with uncertainties, right? It's really a dating and matchmaking kind of service, but it's not often seen that way.
That's
And so I think artists need to understand that, yeah, this is a world they don't understand. It's a world of working in language,
mm,
and language with a certain amount of rigor, but it's
mm.
also part of helping them bring forward what they have to bring forward in the world so they can play at full speed.
Right, right. Well, that's, I think that's one of the complications for artists is they tend to approach things in a more abstract way. And then when you actually have to make the thing, let's say if you have to make something to do with monetary issues or rights or access issues, those things have to be more concrete and more kind of defined and rigid, because the more abstract they are, the more chance there is for long discussions that go nowhere.
Right. But so it's so interesting. It's like two sides of the two edges of the sword, right?
Mm,
Because artists are manifestors, right? They're bringing things to life all the time, and that's part of their genius is that they take something nothing, right, and
mm,
phoom, they've materialized it in a way.
mhm,
So this is to materialize it into a cash flow, right?
mm, mm.
Um, it's something that many of the don't like the idea. It's kind of distasteful in a way.
Right.
Um, one of the things that's helped me about this is even my own self when coming to grips with how because I'm a service provider, I manifest documents and things for people, and to see myself as an artist in many ways too. I think about Walt Disney. There's a quote from Walt Disney that just like, I think this thing needs to be on like a billboard in like every city and town in America. And it's like, we don't make we don't make movies to make money. We don't make movies to make money. We make money so we can make more movies.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If only capitalism had that approach.
Well, it is.
I mean, to me, that's what it's supposed to be, and that's what it was started out to be, and then somebody screwed it up.
I don't know. It's still that though at its essence, right? It's like I remember one of this book, Spiritual Economics, by I think it's Eric Butterworth is his name, and it was referred to me as actually I went to a poetry workshop in upstate New York, and there was a couple there that recommended this book to me. It's a little tiny hardback book, and it says it was a little thing that it said that if all you got paid for your work was your wages, vastly underpaid. Yeah, right. Exactly. So even though we got people that are engaged in these other things, right? Sometimes people forget that they could be loving what they're doing.
Exactly.
And if they are loving what they're doing, then they're getting money to allow them to do the thing that they love to do. Right. And it's conversely, when we pay someone, right, we're fueling them to love the thing that they're doing. So they can do more of it. And I think that we have a disconnect between our work sometimes, right? Particularly a lot of lawyers are disconnected from their work. And there's times when I've been disconnected from my work as a lawyer. And it's like it becomes a drudgery because we don't know why we're doing what we're doing.
That's right. It just seems to be a lot of other considerations in terms of remuneration for work, and sometimes we narrowly define work too. Sometimes people define work as like in hours, and that's the only way they know how to determine or to approach valuing something is how long did it take you to do it. And your artists will know that often people, particularly people who are new to buying art or purchasing art, one of the questions they ask you is, well, how long did it take you to do it? Because now they want to figure out, well, how much would I pay somebody per hour? Because not necessarily that they're wanting to cheat you or something, but they don't know how to evaluate the worth of another person except by hours. I think you were alluding to that in terms of the issue you have with how you charge. How is a way that artists can think of valuing their work?
Yeah, that's super powerful question. It's the case that most times that I would say that probably 99% of the things that people purchased are purchased independent of how much time it took to produce the thing.
Yes.
Like I bought this mug. I probably got it this one I probably found at a thrift store. I was probably, and it was probably like, I probably paid like $2 for it. And like they never entered in my mind how long it took them to make this thing. When I bought this, and I bought the computer that we're on right now, I didn't like, how long did Apple spend to make this thing? That was like zero into it. So that doesn't, and actually, and the artist that I was referring to earlier, she sold her paint. This is something that was new to me too. She shared me. She she prices them by the square inch.
Yeah, I yeah. If you're printing it, I can kind of see that.
But I had no idea.
Yeah. But that's partly because they don't know another way to do it, and they've come to learn that some people buy art by the square inch because they don't know how to value it. How big of a hole in my wall can it cover? That's the question. Or some people, let's say they write a book, and the book is really a magazine article, but the publishers realize they can't sell a magazine article for very much money. So they say, well, you need to like expand this area, expand that area, and waste people's time, because to read your book, or like maybe it's using people's time if it's for fantasy. It's like people want to be engaged. They don't want to put the book down. Take them on a journey, and they want to take the scenic route. So there are all of these considerations for art, like, well, what's it worth to you? Which is the final thing, I suppose.
Yeah. Well,
How long?
there's a whole science in
Yeah,
pricing.
yeah.
I personally have read probably 3 different books on pricing,
Right, right. Well,
and but the bottom line to recognize is this totally subjective.
yeah, right,
There's
right.
no objective, because if we're talking about value and it's totally about what there's actually something that if I can find this, I would send it to you,
Mhm,
where there was a little YouTube video that talked about someone that had found like a stone,
mhm,
and they went to this journey, and they went to like these different, like they went to like someone in their town, then they went to someone like 3 towns over, and they went 3 or 4 people, right? Every one of them was going to give them a different value for this stone,
mhm,
and it was quite illuminating,
mhm,
and all depending on how the person, each each potential buyer took it in, right, and what it meant to them in the context of their life, right?
sure,
Because
sure.
a bottle of water right now in Minneapolis is worth, maybe $3, but if you're in the Sahara Desert and you haven't had any water for 3 days, right?
Parts of a kingdom.
It's right. It's worth quite a bit different. I think people actually understanding that. Um, Also, I just relatedly, I will just share that I remember seeing this entrepreneur, and he was talking about an egg,
Mm,
and he says he had 2 eggs.
mm,
In one egg, he said, "This egg is a nickel,
mhm,
and this egg is 43 cents."
mhm,
And he said, "What's the difference between these 2 eggs?"
mhm.
And he said, "The story,
Exactly. Yeah,
the
that's the story.
story."
The story. Exactly. Exactly.
And so I think that this is what, yeah, I'm actually so glad that it came, just reminded of this, because I think this is so important. This is what marketers do. They figured out how to tell the story to promote the value.
Mhm,
There's a guy that a marketing sort of business guru that I've been listening to. His name is Jay Abraham. He's like a super successful marketing consultant. I
mhm.
mean, companies bring him in for like $20,000-$30,000 a day
Yeah.
to hang out with them and like work through their problems.
Mm,
And he talks about being preeminent
mm,
and
mm,
being preeminent in your market.
mm, mm,
And if you set your sights on being preeminent,
mm.
which actually means unsurpassed by no one, right?
Yeah.
Or surpassing all others. I forget, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
And then if you convey that, like, look, I'm the preeminent artist in this style. There's no other one on the planet that can produce this, right? And this
Right.
is my process. I go through A, B, C, and D, and
Mhm,
then I double around. I throw some salt over my shoulder. I
mhm.
do a little hoochie coochie,
That's
and boom. And
that's
this
right.
thing is special.
That's right. And you got to do the hoochie coochie right, because otherwise the magic don't work. Because there
So
are
yes,
many different
that
hoochie
story.
coochies. There are many different
So
hoochie coochies.
the other thing about it, I'll just mention, just for people who are curious, there's a guy called the Ultimate Coach,
Mm,
and I heard this probably about 6, 7 years ago. He charges $150,000 a year
mm, mm,
upfront,
mhm.
non-refundable. If the relationship doesn't work out, he doesn't give you the money back. He'll donate it to charity.
Okay.
So when you commit,
Mhm. You're
you
committed.
seriously committed.
That's right.
And
This ain't
that,
Walmart.
and I've often thought about that. I'm like, wow, because when I first heard about it, because I was actually investigating doing some coaching, And I got in front of the mirror and I said, "Hi, I'm at a cocktail party. Like someone is coming. Hi, I'm Eduardo Drake." And then they asked me, "What do you do?" Well, I'm a success coach. Oh wow, that's really interesting. I've been looking for some coaching. What do you charge? And then I can't even hold it now. I charge $150,000 a year, right? You see that? You see what happened?
Yeah.
I couldn't hold
He
that.
couldn't hold that, but
I
he
couldn't.
could.
Right. But you can work up to that, right? An artist, like, this is a valuable thing. Like, hey, I'm an artist and I do paintings, and oh, thank you for coming to my show. And this fine painting here, and oh, what's that?
Yeah,
Wow, I really love that. Oh, you don't have a price tag on that. What are you going to charge for that one? And then it's like, oh, that one's 7,500.
yeah, right.
Oh, okay. But if you say it and you can't hold it, you can't
Mhm.
say it,
Yeah,
there's no way you're going to get that, right? Because
yeah,
there's going to be a mismatch.
yeah. If your face tells me I'm charging you 7,500 because I think you're stupid enough to pay it, if your face is saying that, you won't get to 7,500.
Right. And if you start smiling because you're like, I wouldn't even pay this for this, right? I don't think this is worth that. So this is part of actually, if you had gone through the whole process of like registering the copyright for that piece,
Yes, right. Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
And maybe you had a secret process to making it and you documented that and you had non-disclosure agreements, all these things
Mhm.
build up to
Mm,
you supporting the value for this,
mm, mm,
right? Because you have gone through and you got to be the first person that you sell,
mm,
right? You're sold on the value of it because you understand what you put into it or however you come about that in your own way.
mm, mm.
So this is the intellectual property can be sort of like this staircase to you elevating the value of your work. Like,
Right.
look, I'm the only one on the planet that can create this. This is totally unique. This is a one of a kind piece that's never to be reproduced again.
Right. And
And
that's
you sort
part
of,
of the story too.
yes,
That's a major part of the story. And that's the other thing I think that comes into it, Eduardo, is that part of the story is your relationship with the artist, because that's already worth a few thousand right there, is because I know the artist. And for people to
yes,
say that and it be true, because they can say it now with a straight face, that's a thing. And then if they can tell a story about the artist, that this person is special because of this, because that is their this is in their art. It's kind of like if you or I did a painting, it's worth one thing. If uh, Ringo Starr does a painting, that's a whole different thing.
hmm,
And if I can say I met Ringo Starr and he even signed the back of this painting, now there's a whole other thing, and it's all part of the story.
right. And yeah, stories are really powerful, and you can own the elements of those through intellectual property. The story itself,
Mm,
you could have a video, you could have a pamphlet, you could have um, a series of things. You could have a title to the story that's part of that's your trademark. Explain it,
mm-hmm,
right? All the various elements of the story could be potentially part of your property.
mm-hmm,
All those elements, and then I try to use the new sort of metaphor I'm using is that when someone you have created something, it's like a lake, right?
mm,
People are going to come to that lake and they're going to like bathe in it and have an experience.
mm, mm,
And all the things that could lead people to have that experience,
mm,
that unique experience, all the road signs,
mm.
the maps that show people how to get to where you are,
Yeah.
all these things that would tell basically it's all the little story elements,
Mm,
all those things you can own, and you want to own them because if you totally believe in the value you created, you don't want someone that's coming to have your experience to get distracted and detoured off to some other place because someone else had a similar sign to yours, right? And
mm.
they ended up they got the bum goods, right?
Right, right,
Or
right.
like if you were selling aspirin and you had the best kind, you don't want someone to go and have a headache for one day longer or a minute longer because they went and got the wrong thing.
Right, right. You want them to have the real deal, because that also reflects on if they think that they got your thing, but they got something that's not really the thing.
Right. They might not know that.
That's right. And then so now they poo-pooed your brand. It's the story of balsamic vinegar. That's one of the classic stories where they waited too long to get legal relief for people like knocking off their product. But then
Hmm.
by the time they did it, the court said, "Well, look, you guys, if you had come like 200 years ago and had this, then that would have been a thing because at that point you had a unique product still. But once
Hmm.
people started knocking it off and you didn't say anything for 200 years, and now you said, because there's only a few people knocking it off, now everybody around the world's knocking it off, calling, molasses and distilled vinegar balsamic. And then you're saying, yeah, but it disparages our product. It makes our product look bad. And they say, yeah, it does. But, you know,
Hmm.
maybe people now think that that's balsamic and your stuff is not the real stuff
Right.
because
Totally.
it doesn't,
You lose control of that.
so you have to take control of it early.
Like
Uh,
the guy for sriracha.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So sriracha is a generic term now.
yeah, yeah,
Anyone can use it, and
yeah,
there's no regulation about you could call ketchup sriracha, right? And people
exactly.
are like,
And they do.
this, and but the guy actually tried to sort of put the cow back in the barn, and he was unsuccessful in doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And like Montessori schools,
Mm-hmm.
Montessori is an untrademarked term.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can use it. Any daycare center, whatever, kinder care, whatever the place is, can put Montessori, even if it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so people, this market confusion. So what you're actually doing, trademark law actually exists to protect the public
Mm-hmm.
from confusion
Mm-hmm.
about who they're dealing with.
Right, right, right.
Uh, the best metaphor I have for that is a piggy bank.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Trademarks are like piggy banks for your goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
Every time there's an interaction between you and an actual customer, prospective customer, they're putting, if it's positive, they're putting coins in
Interesting.
your bank. If
Mm-hmm.
they're negative, they're taking coins out.
Mm-hmm.
And just like your own bank account, if someone comes up to you and has a bank account that has one digit difference,
Mm-hmm.
and the customers are confused
That's
and
right.
start taking money out of your account because they're getting a bad experience, or putting money in the other person's account because, oh wow, it's a really good one,
Mm-hmm.
then that's not your equity.
That's
You're
right.
losing out on that.
That's right. Yeah. Well, there are, as you mentioned, there are four types of property management tools.
Hmm.
Uh, can you talk a little bit? I think you did, some, but talk a little bit about what is uh, the way artists can best use them, or do they use all three, or how should artists start to see property, um, intellectual property management?
Yeah. Most times people are confusing the different types, right? The
Mm,
patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets. They're
mm,
confusing them.
mm,
And what I tell clients is, look, if you create something new, and you want to own it,
mm.
or you don't want anyone else to be copying it, then you need to figure out how to own it.
Right. Mm,
And that would be a touchstone question usually to managing it.
mm,
And realize that they are. I guess I would even draw it back further from that. Is that, look, anything they do is potentially new,
mm, mm,
because they have unique perspective in the world,
mm, mm, mm.
and it's probably way beyond what they think it is, because we got a lot of baggage in our culture about what an invention is, or what, right?
Right, right, right.
A lot of people think of the light bulb, right? And well, Edison invented the light bulb, and that's the classic invention. Well, this is great, but it ain't no light bulb.
Yeah, exactly.
And they talk themselves out of it having real value.
Hmm.
So really, artists ultimately have to start seeing and understand their real value, understanding their value, and that if they're creating something, there's a good chance it's new. I think they're going to replicate it. I
Hmm.
think if people are really excited about it, then they really want to jump on the bandwagon early and like get some ask questions, right? Get engaged with a professional
Mm.
and look to learn. Like, there's a lot of materials on the internet they can learn more, but a lot of people don't learn well from that. They learn in conversation. They want to hear those stories,
Right, right,
right?
right, right.
So find someone they can talk to, so they can. And that's the first thing is like think about if they create anything new, they want to own it, then let that be the driver.
Mhm.
And um, that's probably the easiest way for people to do it. Like, oh, I created something new. I think this is valuable. I think I can sell a bunch of these. I'm going to monetize this. I don't even know how many different ways. Follow their own excitement, right? If they do something, they got excited about it,
Right, right.
and it's something they created,
Mm.
then like there's probably something there.
Yeah, right, right.
And
And so, and one of the, if I'm understanding you right, in one of those four ways, there may be a way in which you can corner that part of it, because if
right,
you paint a painting, you're not going to patent the paint unless you invented the paint. But if you bought it at Hobby Lobby, you probably won't be able to do that. But the way you use the paint might be a thing.
absolutely. And it could be that the picture that you painted, you might want to get a copyright on it because you're going to like make wallpaper on it, or you're going to make the virtual background with it, right? And you want to protect that, or they're like, wow, it's got a character in it, right? That you're going to replicate that character across other pieces of art, right?
Mm,
So all these pieces, and to really get opening your mind up to like, hey, I want to understand the value of it. I want to multiply this across the world. And part of it is to have that instinct too, right? I want as many people to enjoy this that makes sense, right? And it could be a tiny number of people, and but you think that they're going to get tremendous value, and you don't want anyone else to be confused about the experience and where to get this experience with this kind of work.
mm,
Or it's like, oh, I'm going to sell a gazillion of these.
mm,
I'm going to go to a movie. Like I painted this scene, but there's a whole movie in here, right? There's movie rights, and like there's so many ways to slice and dice things up.
mm, mm. So, how about if, let's say you want to um, do lots of things with it. In other words, you have this one thing you did, uh, but you want to have multi uses out of it. Are you doing one kind of property protection, or two kinds, or and I guess a corollary question is, if let's make it simpler. Let's say you're painting or you're doing something that's basically wall art.
Hmm.
Run us through what you might do as far as property rights
Hmm.
management, that the ways that you could protect and get the right to exploit that
Hmm.
painting or whatever as much as possible. What are the possibilities of exploitation? Maybe that's
Yeah. I guess the overarching concept of that is that you can all these pieces of intellectual property can be alive and active at the same time on anything.
mm,
So the intellectual property is not mutually exclusive because you copyrighted something. You could potentially also get a patent. You could potentially also have trademarks. Potentially have trade secrets available with it, depending on various aspects. So
mm,
in terms of your example, I'm gonna frame it up as a mural,
mm,
right? You
mm,
could have a secret process for how you do the murals to get a particular effect, or to do it in a cost-effective way, right?
mm,
You might have a projection system and a way of projecting it on there to get some perspective or whatever it is.
mm,
So that could be a trade secret, and you may have three or four people that you hired to help you execute the thing because you got a commission for it.
mm,
And you might have those people sign non-disclosure agreements to
mm,
protect the confidentiality of the process that you're using to actually create it. The work itself would be potentially copyrighted. You might have a small rendering of it. That's
mm,
the basis of it. You could copyright that.
mm,
Um, there might be issues. You might have multiple people that collaborated on creating the original piece of the image that you're gonna put on the mural.
mm,
And you'd have agreements between those people, like what's your share of ownership of the work, or maybe you're not an owner. I'm doing this, you're doing this so that you can get sort of reputational value. You know,
Mhm.
you're a co-collaborator on this, but I'm lending you credibility because I'm the big known, I'm the marquee artist here, and
Mhm.
you're an up and comer. I'm going to share this with you so you can get some exposure too,
Mhm.
and you might have the agreement would spell out the terms of that.
Mhm.
Um, so that's the got trade secret, got copyright. The patents could be in play in terms of could be the process itself, could be also you might file a patent application on it, even though there's trade secret.
Mhm.
Um, you might there may be a special surface that you're coating, that you're painting, and and you want it to be a weatherproof mural and withstand over time. That could be a patent. You may be adding, say, you were adding mixed media. You were, I don't know, putting certain appliques on the wall
Mhm.
to make it so it's more of a relief.
Mhm.
Those could be, so the whole thing could be subject to a design
Mhm.
patent application and design patent rights
Mhm.
as well. And then the trademark, right? If you are a big marquee artist and you have a name, you have a particular style, maybe, or set of styles that you do. Like there's a George Floyd Memorial
Mhm.
um, mural here in Minneapolis, and I don't know who the artist is, but maybe they have a particular kind of sort of public relations style or memorial style that they're using, and they
Mhm.
could give that a particular name so people will know. Oh, I want the. We just say for lack of for expediency that hey, it's the Floyd style.
Mhm.
Like I want the Floyd style because this is the kind of an event that happened in my city, and I want that Floyd style, and
Mhm.
you could own that.
Mhm.
Um, and people would come looking for that from
Mhm.
you, like do this Floyd style here.
Mhm.
Um, so I think I touched on all four of them there.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that kind of gets to another thing too. Is like sometimes the patent, as much as for monetary value of the thing, becomes a monetary value in terms of the person, the artist themselves, in the sense that if you have a patent on a style, that that forever marks you as the originator of that style. That officially marks you as the originator of that style. So if someone were to go back and say, well, who invented this style? The way they could document it, now we could get into arguments about who did it before, but the documentable part about that is your trademark on the style, would be your trademark on the style,
Right,
which ups your value as an artist because you have something in Wikipedia now.
right. And no one else can if you do it right and you take care of your trademarks. Trademarks can last forever.
Mm-hmm.
The other rights, trademarks and trade secrets are the only two that can last forever. The other two have time limits on them.
Okay.
But both of them, trade secrets and copyrights require um, like trademarks can last. Trademarks and trade secrets can last forever, but they require uh, um,
Maintenance.
proper maintenance, feeding and watering. If
Right.
you don't, then those rights will
So
dissipate over time.
exactly. Exactly. Uh, so let's talk a little bit about how we might
I have about
bring.
5 minutes more.
Okay. How about how artists we might bring this information to artists, and vis-a-vis the this South Dakota
Mhm.
Arts Council thing. How would we bring that? How could we possibly bring this to them?
Well, we could do
To
some
artists.
seminar. Yeah, we could do seminars. We could create sections on your website.
Mm,
It's actually part of what I'm doing with as I'm rebranding to Infinity. Is
mm,
I'm going to offer some more courses
mm,
because I think that the lack of understanding about these issues
mm,
is creating a lot of problems, and world is missing out on opportunities for people to be as creative as they could be because they don't understand what's possible. They don't appreciate their own value, their own capacity to make a difference in the world. So that's another reason why this call is so timely, because I'm in the midst. Actually, I hired a coach to help me just create some group programs, and I just met with her. I have a second meeting with her this morning, and we're talking about how to roll this out. And I'm having hopefully a June launch with some coursework around this, and a lot of that is taking my 25 years of coming up with good language, good stories to help people understand, stories and metaphors to help people understand what they're dealing with. And it's got me really excited about what's happening. It's got me really excited about this next phase in my journey as an IP lawyer, and to see that there is more creativity, more things being creative now than ever in the history of the world. And it's perhaps the case that in the last week, probably there's been more new creative content than in all the first, 10,000 years of human history, because so much of it's coming out.
Yeah, Tuk wasn't doing a lot of work on that intellectual patents. I know that we could talk forever.
Yeah.
I know you got to go. I just want to say thank you for the time, and you and I should get together, because this talk tells me that we might have work to do. We might be able to do something.
Cool. I'm excited about that. I know that you have some individual projects, and I'm excited about helping with that, and this larger project with the community. Yeah, I'd be happy to have a bigger conversation, and to even come out and talk to the folks via Zoom or whatever.
All right. We'll talk again. Thanks so much again.
Thank you, Lawrence. You have an amazing day.
Okay. Bye, Eduardo.